some ways, you can't help but you kind of feel sympathy for JD Vance having to defend Donald Trump, who he himself openly denounced. It's kind of like being Diddy's defense attorney, you know?
Chris, and I think that I've learned my lesson on speaking for the president before he and I have actually talked about an issue.
So he would veto a federal abortion ban?
I think he would. He said that explicitly, that he would.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, JD Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with JD and all.
JD Vance's transformation from a staunch Trump critic to one of his most devoted allies is nothing short of mind-bending. Once upon a time, Vance was the intellectual conservative, the straight shooter who saw Trump as corrosive, unfit for office, and a threat to American democracy.
My biggest problem with Trump, I mean, and there are many, many things to pick out, but my biggest problem with Trump is that his message to the right, especially the white working class of which I came from, is anti-conservative and in some ways anti-American. It's fundamentally that the deck is so stacked against you that unless I'm the president, nothing that you do will change your life's outcomes. I think it's wrong, and I think it's very self-destructive. And so one of the takeaways is not just that the Republican Party base is somehow fundamentally flawed in a way that's unique in American political history. It's that Trump is a really bad candidate and, frankly, I think a really bad person.
He wasn't just hesitant about Trump. He actively warned against him, calling his movement a grift and accusing him of selling false hope to the working class. He was a best-selling author, a Silicon Valley investor, and a Yale-educated voice of reason, someone who was supposed to represent conservative principles without bowing to MAGA fanaticism. But then, somewhere along the way, JD Vance made a decision, a cold, calculated decision.
From last night was the crowning of Donald Trump's MAGA movement heir apparent. No, not that guy. No. There you go. The other dark-haired, bearded dude right in front of that one, JD Vance. I got to tell you something, man. That ain't right. It's like for vice president, Donald selected the actor who would be hired to play Don Jr. in the Lifetime movie.
He saw where the political winds were blowing, did the math, and realized that the fastest way to power wasn't through principled conservatism, but through total submission to Donald Trump. And so he flipped, hard. He didn't just change his stance, he did a full ideological backflip worthy of Olympic gold, suddenly becoming Trump's loudest cheerleader.
I'm running to be your next vice president of the United States, and I'm incredibly honored to stand here and ask you for your vote and ask you for your hard work. But if we win, and I believe that we are gonna win in 33 days, my friends, I feel very confident about it.
Watch. Do we have a president? He just got back from California. He was supposed to go to the White House. He never got there. He went to Delaware, and he's laying on a beach sleeping all day long. No, seriously, who the hell wants to sleep? And who wants to sleep in public? He's sleeping. Do you think President Xi of China is at a beach sleeping? Do you think Kim Jong-un is sleeping from North Korea with his nuclear weapons all over the place? They don't sleep so much. Did you see Barack Hussein Obama last night? Take little shots. He was taking shots at your president.
Now, Vance stands proudly at Trump's side, parroting every talking point, defending every scandal, and rewriting his own history in real time. This is a man who once compared Trumpism to a heroin addiction, now standing at rallies with the same blank stare Mike Pence perfected over 4 years of servitude.
As somebody who doesn't like Trump, myself, the elites were right about Donald Trump, right? I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place. If I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary.
This woman is not a show-off. She's just telling what happened so we can know it.
Yeah, and it's sort of, it makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
No, denial is normal.
And the best part, he thinks nobody remembers. He believes that just because he swapped out his book tours for Trump rallies, people will forget his long history of condemning the very man he now worships. But the internet never forgets, and neither does late-night television, where Jimmy Kimmel took one look at JD's miraculous transformation and said, yeah, let's talk about this guy.
Trump's running mate, Maybelline brand ambassador JD Vance, likes He enjoys taking questions from the press at his appearances so the crowd can boo the reporters. I guess that's fun for him. So at a campaign stop in Detroit, a reporter asked him about these calls with Putin, and JD doesn't seem to have any problem with them at all.
Kimmel didn't just roast Vance, he incinerated him. Every joke landed like a precision airstrike, exposing Vance's hypocrisy, his shameless flip-flopping, and his willingness to sell out every last ounce of integrity for a shot at political power.
Is there something wrong with speaking to world leaders?
First of all, yes. And second, yes, it's very wrong to have chats with dictators who are trying to exterminate our allies when you aren't the president anymore. Same reason you don't throw a birthday party for Diddy.
Take Vance's recent ski trip to Sugarbush Resort, a name that Kimmel joked might as well be his Secret Service code name. He picked the wrong state to unwind in because the moment he arrived in Vermont, he was greeted by hundreds of protesters who saw through his phony act.
Vance celebrated his Zelensky sucker punch with a ski trip. The Vance traveled to the Sugarbush Resort, which coincidentally, Sugarbush is also JD Vance's Secret Service code name. But Vance, I think he picked the wrong state to relax in because when he got to Vermont, he was greeted by hundreds of protesters.
And let's not forget his latest cringeworthy moment, where he stumbled through defending Trump's bizarre remarks about Kamala Harris, calling her a chameleon who pretends to be somebody different depending on which audience she's in front of.
Former president's comments yesterday to the National Association of Black Journalists, where he said that Vice President Harris is, quote, all of a sudden black. As a father of 3 biracial children, did those comments give you pause at all?
They don't give me pause at all. Look, all he said is that Kamala Harris is a chameleon. She goes to Georgia 2 days ago. She was raised in Canada. She puts on a fake Southern accent. She is everything to everybody, and she pretends to be somebody different depending on which audience she's in front of. I think it's totally reasonable for the president to call that out.
The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Here's a man who went from calling Trump unfit for office to practically holding his coat on the campaign trail. The hypocrisy is so blatant, so absurd, that it doesn't even need exaggeration. But the real gut punch came when Kimmel played old clips of Vance, the ones where he confidently dismissed Trump's stolen election lies.
Hollow shell of a human being. Probably the most talked about moment of the debate last week was when Vance refused to concede that Trump lost the election, which is interesting because CNN yesterday found an interview Vance did with Megyn Kelly in November of 2020 in which he said this.
I really don't see any reason to think that this is going to become violent or chaotic. I think that when Biden is inaugurated, people will more or less accept it, and it'll be on to the next fight.
Good call, Nostradamus.
The ones where he mocked MAGA hysteria. The ones where he openly considered voting for Hillary Clinton because Trump was such a disaster. Fast forward a few years, and now he's out here on Fox News, spinning Trump's ramblings like they're divine revelations, translating his nonsense into digestible sound bites for the base. It's not just a flip-flop, it's a full personality transplant.
Trump's running mate, Maybelline brand ambassador JD Vance, he enjoys taking questions from the press at his appearances so the crowd can boo the reporters. I guess that's fun for him. So at a campaign stop in Detroit, a reporter asked him about these calls with Putin, and JD doesn't seem to have any problem with them at all.
JD Vance isn't just playing a role. He's completely rebranded himself into whatever version of a conservative Trump needs at the moment. And the thing about selling your soul is that eventually people notice. Vance built his career criticizing the exact type of political grifting he's now engaging in. He once prided himself on being a voice for the working class. Now he's just another politician reading from Trump's script. It's like watching a tech investor walk into a Walmart, throw on a camo hat, and suddenly pretend he's been hunting deer his whole life. The rebrand is about as convincing as a gas station Rolex. But what makes it even funnier is that Vance isn't just faking it. He's faking it badly. Every time Trump speaks, Vance stands in the background, nodding furiously, pretending like he isn't suppressing every single thought his former self would have screamed from the rooftops. Kimmel tore apart the entire act, turning Vance's transformation into one of the most brutal late-night monologues in recent memory. And it's no wonder, because watching JD Vance cling to Trump for dear life is like watching someone desperately rewrite their Wikipedia page while the original version is still live for everyone to see. He used to call Trump a con man. Now he's running to be his vice president. He used to call MAGA delusional. Now he's their #1 hype man. And he thinks nobody notices. But everyone notices. Jimmy Kimmel noticed. The protesters in Vermont noticed. And in the end, history is going to remember JD Vance not as the principled conservative intellectual he once pretended to be, but as a man who sold out, bent the knee, and became the very thing he once despised.